We're just a few days before Pesach now, and I thought it's very appropriate to learn the Halachot of Erev Pesach and of Leil HaSeder. We've been touching the Halachot of Chametz, kashering the house, and now about Tachkitniot. Now, what do we do in Leil HaSeder? If we have a few questions, so I opened also the WhatsApp in front of me and also the chat, so you can feel free to ask. And on the chat, since I connected the microphone, I will not be able to hear you. Okay, so it's just a microphone connected. So interaction will be by chat or in person. Let's start from Erev Pesach, and it will be touch the basic halachot of Erev Pesach about doing melach on Erev Pesach, eating chametz, benefiting from chametz, and ta'anit bechorot. This will start from ta'anit bechorot, the fast of the firstborn, just in case the people here who are firstborn. Me too. Yeah. So there's a minhag, which is already mentioned, and Shulchan Aruch writes it down. It's that the Bechorot fast on Erev Pesach. To the question if it's just men or so women that need to fast, we won't go into it. But the minhag is that only men theoretically fast, and not like the other fasts that we have. It wasn't established by Chazal as a fast, like one of the Tisha B'Av, Yud Tammuz. They even mentioned somehow in the Nevi'im. This is more of a minhag. So we are much more lenient with this fast. So anyone who's a bit not feeling well, he doesn't need to fast. And also in the end, the minhag is to join a siyum. Join a siyum masechet. And we have here in Shul siyum masechet, and that's the custom to rely on a siyum masechet, and then you can eat. There's a question about siyum masechet that in the end became the regular thing for siyum masechet. What is considered a siyum masechet? And that's, I think, a question which we have many times. During the year, people ask me, well, what's considered a siyum masechet? Can you do a siyum masechet on a book of Tanakh? Can you do a siyum masechet on Mishnah? Okay, so what's considered a siyum masechet? And usually, what do you care? For the regular day, what do you care if I finished now Masechet of Mishnah? I'm happy about it. Can I call it a Siyum Masechet? Call it a Siyum Masechet. What do you care about it? Make a party, have a lechaim. What do you care? But for Ta'anit Bechorot and also for eating meat on the 9 days, it needs to be something which has a lot of meaning to it. It's not so easy to accomplish. So it has to be a Siyum Masechet of Gemara. Some consider other things, but it needs to be a Siyum Masechet of Gemara. And also, it could be also Gemara from the Bavli, from the Yerushalmi. If people learn Yerushalmi, it can be a whole Seder of the Mishnah, not just one Masechet from the Mishnah, but 1 out of 6 of the Mishnah, a whole Seder of the Mishnah, something which is, people learn it, put a lot of effort into it. It needs to be something that they learned and understood it, not just reading. That's, you should know. And a very important thing which people don't know so much, that the poskim write that if one finished the Masechet, so he got to the last 2 lines of the Masechet, and he left the last 2 lines for Ta'anit Bechorot, it doesn't really count. At least for the Machmirim. So there's some people say it doesn't count. And the reason is that when are you happy? When you read the last 2 lines, or when you accomplish the whole Masechet? Usually when you accomplish the Masechet. So you shouldn't just leave the last 2 lines for the Siyum Masechet. What I do many times, I leave a whole blot, a whole daf, and then I learn the whole daf on Erev Pesach. Then there's quite a bit of Gemara there to learn beforehand, and I feel that I accomplished the Siyum Masechet. We meet it in years like this year's, that people who learn the Daf Yomi, they have many Siyumim they do a year. Unfortunately, or maybe that's how it worked out, this year, Masechet Baba Kama, that we finished about 50 days ago. Okay, so we finished Baba Kama 50 days ago, and the next Siyum will be in quite a few weeks. So people who want to do a Siyum in Masechet Baba Kama, they'll just read 2 lines from Baba Kama, they really did learn the Gemara 50 days ago. So that's why I leave an important portion of the Masechet. That's about Ta'anit Bechorot. and the Matas Siyum Masechet.
But in shul, it's, let's say you have learned the entire Masechta, but most of the people here are just hearing the last daf.
The last daf. So there's a question: what about people who didn't finish the Masechet? They just join the Siyum Masechet. Some poskim say only people who learn, only they have the simcha in it. Only they can rely on the Siyum Masechet. In the end, the custom is like the poskim who are more lenient. And when you join a Siyum Masechet, also you're happy about it. When you go to a Brit Milah, so everyone's happy, even although it's not your baby, it's your friends of the neighbor. You're still happy. So you join, it's a communal thing. So when you go to Siyum Masechet, so everyone feels part of it. He feels the happiness, and that's why it's considered the Seudat Mitzvah. It's a meal of mitzvah, and that's stronger than the Ta'anit Bechorot. Can maybe say I thought of dedicating the last few minutes of learning today to more hashkafa, more ideas about Pesach, and we'll get to it later, that in Pesach there's something very communal. It's the holiday of we build a house, we build a family, we build a community together. And the Siyum Masechet, when people gather together to learn, so it's a communal thing. We don't do melacha on Erev Pesach. That's the next topic. Okay, doing melacha on Erev Pesach, the times of the Beis HaMikdash, that's when they shechted Korban Pesach. So they shechted Korban Pesach, that's like a Yom Tov. So even although now we don't have Beit HaMikdash, so we don't do melacha on the second half of the day of Pesach, of Erev Pesach. Okay, so the day before. And some don't do melacha even on the morning. So it's part of Korban Pesach. It's also, so they won't forget to burn the chametz. They'll be too busy doing things. What's considered the melacha? Can you drive? Can you light a candle? What's considered a melacha? We can divide the melachot maybe to two categories. We'll divide it to three. Any melacha that you can do on Chol HaMoed seems like you can also do on Erev Pesach. Something which is melacha, it's something which you really need to put your time in it, to sew something, to build a chair, that you don't do on Erev Pesach. Anything which is simple, every person can do, so that you can also do. If people shave every day, so they can shave shouldn't have a haircut, but they can shave, they can iron the clothes, they can brush the shoes. That's everyone does it. You can send your kids something to do it, a child to do it. You can cut your nails. Some do it before Chatzot, before the midday, but you can do that on Erev Pesach. And things which are in between, let's say sewing something, which isn't so complicated. If you do it for free for your neighbor or for yourself, so that's fine. But if you're doing it to earn money, so that's already becomes it's a business, so that you can't do. So if you want to divide it, anything which is simple, easy to do, you can do it at home. Anything which is more like a business, more like a very complicated, you have to put a lot of effort into it, that you shouldn't do on Erev Pesach. Eating on Erev Pesach, I think this is a very common question. What do we eat on Erev Pesach? I think it's a romantic day, more than Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is very simple, you can't eat. Okay, very simple. Erev Yom Kippur, very simple, eat. It's a mitzvah to eat. What do we eat on Erev Pesach? There's a takana of Chazal. Chazal wanted us to go to Pesach and feel, first bite of matzah. If we eat matzah a day beforehand, well, it's not so new. Like on Chanukah, a month before Chanukah, you can buy some ganiyot in the shop. Comes Chanukah, who can eat some ganiyot after your donuts, after you've been eating them for a whole month beforehand? A month before Purim, you can eat the hamantashins, right? You get to Purim, I want to eat hamantashins. You've been eating them already. So there's no mitzvah to eat hamantashins on Purim. There's no mitzvah to eat donuts on Chanukah. So we don't need to refrain from them beforehand. But matzah, it's a mitzvah midoraita to eat matzah on Leila Seder. So therefore, Chazal said at least a day beforehand, don't eat matzah. Some even don't eat matzah 30 days beforehand, some only from the beginning of Nisan, but at least a day beforehand, we don't eat matzah. Now, what's the problem? You also can't eat chametz. From around more or less 10:30 more or less, you can't eat chametz anymore, depending on each time zone, what time it is. So what do you eat? So you can eat potatoes. Okay, we're going to eat potatoes for a whole week. What do you eat? The rule is that any matzah that you can't be yotze yedei chova on Pesach, you can eat it on Erev Pesach. If you want to make it simple, cooked matzah you can eat on Erev Pesach. Not cooked matzah you can't eat on Erev Pesach. So kneidalach, it's already matzah balls, and it's cooked. You can eat it on Erev Pesach. Matzah bra, you can still see the matzah. The bracha might be hamotzi. You don't eat on Erev Pesach. Okay, so anything which is cooked, the bracha will be mezonot. You can say you can eat on Erev Pesach. Okay, so that's for Erev Pesach. Obviously, you can eat vegetables and fruit and potatoes and other things from around 3 hours more or less before the Seder, towards the end of the day. We don't eat any big meal. Even if it's cooked matzah, we don't eat it. And the reason is, so we get to El Seder when we have an appetite. So we eat the matzah with a big appetite. If someone's still hungry, then he can eat snack on fruit and vegetables. So that's Erev Pesach. And now we're going to the Haggadah, to the Seder night. It's Seder night. We've been waiting for us a whole year. That's one night a year. And we have two mitzvot mideoraita. Mitzvot mideoraita, what are they?
Eat matzah and the Sedfer.
Yeah, eat matzah and say the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. You should know that eating matzah is mideoraita. We have other mitzvot which are the Rabbanan, rabbinical. Eating maror in our days is rabbinical, Rabbanan. In the times of the Mikdash, when they had the Korban Pesach, that was mideoraita. So today, eating maror is rabbinical. Another mitzvah which is rabbinical is 4 cups of wine. Yeah, 4 cups of wine. So that is rabbinical. That's a mitzvah midrabanan. That's rabbinical. And we also have the mitzvah of haseva, which is a question how to view it. Is that part of eating matzah, part of drinking the 4 cups, or is it a mitzvah on its own? So that's a question. In any case, it's rabbinical. The mitzvah of haseva, leaning on the left side. And it comes from the idea that we'll discuss it more on Shabbat. If you join the English class on Shabbat, it comes from the idea more that we need to see ourselves as if we went out of Egypt. So we became free, and we eat like free people, or can lean. We can allow ourselves to lean. We don't need to sit straight, hands on the table. We can allow ourselves to be a bit more flexible, a bit more rested. So that's the idea of leaning. Okay, so let's go through the Seder, and we'll discuss a few questions which we have in Halacha. And the first mitzvah we meet is Kiddush, right? Kadesh. So if Kadesh, we have 2 mitzvot we do. One is Kiddush. Another one is, it's the first part of the 4 cups of wine. So it's Kiddush. And that already brings us to a question about amounts. How much wine do we need to drink? Or what wine do we need to drink? So let's start with the question of what wine do we need to drink? Yesterday, I got a question on the WhatsApp, one of the WhatsApp groups. Do we need to drink red wine on Leil HaSeder? So do we need to drink red wine? What do you think?
No, it's preferred. I think.
It's preferred, yes. So red wine is preferred unless white wine is considered better. Or if people like white wine more. I think with grape juice, so I think that the white one is considered nicer, while in wine, usually the red wine is considered better, I think. But I'm not such a wine expert here, but obviously you can sometimes have a good Chardonnay, which was aged and will be better. The idea of drinking wine will be, that's something which makes us happy. En simcha, ela bebasar v'yain. There's no happiness, but with eating meat and drinking wine, it's meal like free people. We can allow ourselves to be free people. We don't need to just eat bread and other crumbs. So drinking wine is part of being a free person, part of the simcha, part of the mitzvah of happiness on Yom Tov.
So what's the story with grape juice?
So some people don't like wine so much, especially when you need to drink 4 cups of wine. So we'll see how much do we need to drink. So they prefer grape juice, and since halachically for many, many things, grape juice is considered wine, one can also drink grape juice on Leil HaSeder. It's preferable to drink wine, but if wine makes for you a headache, if someone drinks wine, he won't be able to read the Haggadah, to tell the story of the Haggadah. which is a mitzvah midoraita, as we mentioned, so you can drink grape juice. What I do many times is I dilute it, and each cup I put less grape juice and more wine. And that way I know that when I drink the first cup, so on an empty stomach, so I won't have too much wine, but slowly, as we go into the Seder, so I add more wine until I have just wine in the last cup. And I think that's a good balance between trying to have also a Seder night without being too tipsy, and also having wine, which makes happy, and that's only with wine. So that's about wine and grape juice. What about the amounts? How much wine do we need to drink? And the answer is that actually, when we calculate the amounts, it's not so hard to drink the wine. Maybe it's a bit not too hard to drink the wine. And let's just talk about the measurements. So we need to drink a revi'it, okay? A measurement called revi'it. Now there's a big machloket between the poskim. How much is a revi'it? We know Chazal said revi'it. Everyone knew in that times how much is a log, how much is a quarter of a log. So that's simple on the times of Chazal. But today we don't know, and we tried to measure it in cc's or milliliters. There's a machloket between the Chazon Ish, who is quite machmir, and more or less he doubled all of the measurements we have according to the Grach HaMa'eh. So we have two ideas. According to the Chazon Ish, we need to drink 150 milliliters, 150 cc's, which is quite a bit of wine. Most poskim hold that you can drink less than that. You can drink just 86 cc's, that's milliliters, 86 milliliters, that is a revi'it of wine. Or we should say it a bit better, the cup that you use for the Seder night should hold at least 86 milliliters of wine. And so that's, now when you take a regular disposable cup, that has almost 200 milliliters. So just so you know, you take a regular disposable cup that has almost 200 milliliters. You can buy smaller ones which have about 100, and that's a revi'it. Okay, so you can measure it before Pesach. Take a measuring cup, check 100 milliliters. That's more than a revi'it. That's fine. It's better to drink all of the cup. Don't take a huge mug. Okay, don't take a big cup. It's better to drink all of the cup of wine. So that you should know. Preferably drink the whole cup. You took too much of a huge cup, change to a smaller one, but at least one should drink also melolo gmav, a mouthful, and also rov revi'it, most of a revi'it. Turns out to be that for most people, a mouthful is more than a revi'it. More than half a revi'it. It's most of a revi'it. So if a revi'it is 86 milliliters, let's say we need to drink at least 50 milliliters. Okay, more than half, 45 milliliters, okay, more than half, which a mouthful is more or less 50, depending on the person, 50 milliliters. So when you calculate the whole 4 cups, how much you should be, how much I should drink, if one says he'll drink 50 milliliters of wine, so the whole Seder night he'll be drinking only 200 milliliters of wine, only one disposable cup, stretched out through the whole Seder night, and therefore it's usually not so much of a problem. Okay? It's better to drink the whole cup. Okay? So but if someone he can't drink the whole cup, that's the minimum of drinking. So it's not so hard to drink all of the.
Last cup, though, you drink the whole cup.
Preferably, yeah. Preferably to drink the whole cup. Also the last one. If we discussed measurements, let's also discuss a more complicated measurement, and that is matzah. Okay, then we'll discuss how long should you drink it in and eat it in. So on Leila Seder, we have a few kazaites of matzah that we eat. We say mitzvah midoraita is to eat 1 kazait of matzah. That's the mitzvah midoraita. 1 kazait of matzah. Kazait is an olive. The question is, what kind of olive? So that's midoraita. What we do practically is we eat at the beginning of the Seder, we say motzi matzah. So we say for hamotzi we eat 1 kazait, and for the mitzvah of matzah we eat another kazait. So it's 2 kazites, and then we eat for korech we eat another kazait when we have it together with the maror, and then for the afikoman we eat another 1 or 2 kazites of matzah. So in the end you might end up Well, Seder for between 4 and 5 kazites of matzah. And the question is, how much is a kazite? How much is the measurement of an olive? As you could guess, we have a machloket, right? We already mentioned. We mentioned the Chazon Ish, who more or less doubles all of the measurements, and also the Gachnai, Reb Chaim Nai, who is about half of the measurement of the Chazon Ish. Besides that, we also have machloket between the Rishonim. How much is a kazite compared to an egg, compared to a kabetza? Is a third of a kabetza according to the Rambam, or is it half a kabetza according to the Rosh? So we have an argument of how much is an olive compared to an egg, and obviously we have so many kinds of olives and we have so many kinds of eggs. So that's how we'll get to the question: how much exactly is a kazite? So we have here quite a big argument. There are some who are machmir and say it's about a whole machine matzah. A whole machine matzah, that's a kazite. There is a shita that says, and seen like quite a few poskim from Vilna. I'm not sure if it's Reb Chaim from Brisk, the student of the Gra. I'm not sure if he writes it down, but it's brought from his students that he was very makel in the measurements of kazite. It's very lenient, and he said, look at the olive our days. How big is an olive? That's more or less a kazite. So here it's very, very lenient. Let's say you take a big olive from today, you don't get to so much matzah, you get to maybe a quarter of a matzah, more or less. The more common opinion is, from the Mekel opinion, is to eat at least a third of a machine matzah. At least a third of a machine matzah, some would say half, but at least a third of a machine matzah. The Chazon Ish, we said, doubles everything. So it will be at least 2/3 of machine matzah for each kazite. So if we go via Reb Chaim Meir, many poskim hold like that, it's at least a third of a machine matzah, and more or less the same with hand matzah. If it's a thick hand matzah, you can buy very, very thin hand matzah today, and then it's hard to measure, but it will be a bit more than that. By the way, all of the measurements are by volume and not by weight. Some people do it by weight because it's easier to calculate it, but the measurements are volume measurements. Okay.
The olive or even an egg, so it's not very much.
So an olive is between a third and half of an egg, and the question is what size of an egg? Is it medium or extra large? So you have different kinds of egg. So that's why we have so many opinions in the poskim. And okay, so at least we should have a third of a machine matzah. We usually have the rule that in a mitzvah midorabanan we can be more lenient. In a mitzvah midoraita we need to be more stringent. So we said that there's 2 mitzvot midoraita on Leil Seder, eating matzah and saying a story. So for the first kazite we should eat at least, we said 2/3 of a matzah. But as we mentioned already, in the beginning of a Seder, how many kazites do we eat? 1 for hamotzi. Problems with the internet here. Hopefully, we eat 1 kazite for hamotzi and 1 kazite for matzah. So if for one thing we actually eat 2 zaitim, which works out to be 2/3 of a matzah. So if someone is hard for him to eat 2/3, so he should eat at least 2/3 of a matzah, of a machine matzah. If it's easier for him to eat, so the first kazite at least he should eat 2/3 of a matzah, and afterwards everyone should be a third of a matzah. If for someone like that, he'll be eating at the beginning a whole matzah, 2/3 plus 1/3, and then a third of a matzah for korech, and between a third and 2/3 of matzah for the afikoman.
That's for 1 whole machine matzah.
1 whole machine matzah in the beginning, and then another third for korech, and another between 1/3 and 2/3, depending on the customs, of how much for the afikoman. So he'll be eating 2 whole machine matzahs through the Seder night. So it's a lot, but not too much. If someone is really hard for him, so at least for the first kazite, he should eat at least for the first kazite a third of a matzah, and then for the rest he can eat less than that. But as we said, that's someone who's really, really hard. It's really hard for him to eat matzah. Okay, so at least for the first matzah, he should eat a third. Otherwise, regular people at the beginning of the Seder should eat about 2/3 of matzah at the beginning of the Seder night. Once I went to a family for Leil Seder, and they were almost like sitting there with the watch, eating the matzah and saying, eating it fast. in order to eat the matzah on time. The same by drinking. Took the cup of wine and drank it fast with eating it on time. So you should know that we won't go now into the Machoket exactly how much and how, but the time, Chazal said, eat it or drink it in the normal time for eating or drinking. Okay, so if one now takes a sip and then dreams and looks at his watch and starts fiddling and playing with his matzah, that's not the normal time of eating. If one drinks it and enjoys the wine, and he doesn't, he just stops to breathe a bit every now and then, that doesn't choke himself, so that's fine. Okay, we need to drink a revit of wine, about 86 milliliters. In the normal time it takes to drink a revit of wine. So without standing next to the watches and looking at the watches, just the normal time it takes to eat a revit of wine, that's how long it should take us. The same for matzah. We need to eat a kazait of matzah, maybe 2 kazites of matzah, in the time of eating pras. What's a pras? Half a loaf of bread. How much is half a loaf of bread? Between 8 and 9 kazaitim. Okay, so we need to eat 2 kazites of matzah in the time it takes us to eat 8 or 9 kazaitim, which means that you can take the matzah, chew it slowly without being in a rush. You have time. Just don't speak in the middle, don't stop for other things, don't fiddle, play with your friends, and just eat the matzah. I was going to teach a few more halachot and something more inspiring or hashkafa for Pesach. So just discuss the mitzvah of haseva. Yeah, haseva. And the chidush I heard from Rav Asher Weiss. So haseva, we'll just touch it on Shabbat, we'll just expand it a bit about it more. Haseva, we should lean on the left side, and if someone didn't lean for the left side for eating a matzah, he should go back and eat the matzah again, at least the first kazait of matzah. For the korech, if someone forgot to lean, he doesn't need to lean again for the korech. And for the afikoman, it depends. If he still has an appetite, he should eat it again. If he doesn't have an appetite, he doesn't need to eat it again. For the wine cups, so for the first 2 cups, he should drink again the wine leaning on the left. And for the second 2 cups, he doesn't repeat drinking the wine. Why? We won't go now to all of this. On Shabbat, we'll discuss it more. Is there haseva today? Isn't there haseva today? Women in haseva. The women need to eat when they're leaning. So the Ashkenazi psika is yes, women should eat when they're leaning or drink when they're leaning. But since in the past, women didn't do haseva, if a woman drank sitting up straight, she doesn't need to repeat, not the matzah and not the wine. So that's for the haseva.
It's preferable for women
to lean, yeah. Bushavai says that's a quite chudish, but makes sense. Women need to also drink like bnei chorim, like 3 people. So a woman should sit down, not walking around. Like she should sit down. She doesn't need to lean on her left. She should sit down. If it's comfortable, straight, so sit down straight. But sit down like a 3 person without rushing between places, and then eat the matzah and drink the wine. So that we discussed a few halachot of the Seder. We discussed the mitzvah of eating matzah. We didn't discuss the mitzvah of telling a story. But we should say the mitzvah is telling a story. Okay, telling the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, as the Agada says, that's the mitzvah of El Seder, to ourselves, to other people, telling the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. And now maybe a few short ideas for Pesach. And an idea which I think I had this year. In the beginning of the Seder, we have a story about the rabbis going to Bnei Brak and talking there about Pesach all night. And many ask, why did the rabbis go to Bnei Brak? Why is it such a question? Who lives in Bnei Brak? Who's the rabbi in Bnei Brak? Rabbi Akiva. With him sat his rabbis. For example, Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer came to Bnei Brak. Rabbi Eliezer is from Lud. Okay, so usually you would expect to go to your rabbi's house and not the rabbi to come to you. And there's a few answers about it. A very common answer is that Rabbi Akiva had this great mind. He used to know how to comfort the nation. We're talking after the temple was destroyed, around the Bar Kokhba revolt, maybe. Rabbi Akiva, he knows to see he's an optimistic person. He says Gamzu Tova. That's a very common answer. And I think that this year I had another answer. And it's, if we look at the people, the rabbis who came to sit with Rabbi Akiva, some of the rabbis were known to be big Bali Machlokot. They had quite strong arguments between them. For example, Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer. They go to Bava Metzia. I think it's in Daf Nuntet. There's a big machloket between Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer. The story must happen before that argument. And a very harsh machloket between them. So obviously there were different opinions between the rabbis. Some were more leaning towards Beit Shammai, some were more towards Beit Hillel. And Leila Seder, we mentioned, that's a holiday when we unite together as a family. We unite together as a family, we unite together as neighbors, and we unite together as a nation, right? Ish lefi ochlo. We bring our family together. We used to eat all the Pesach in one house. You couldn't leave the house, and afterwards, when they finished, they used to go up to the roofs and sing Hallel everyone together. It's a mixture between a korban yachid and a korban tzibur. It's a korban yachid, which means it's a private korban, but it's also like has a communal aspect of a national aspect. So Pesach is the holiday of uniting the nation with a covenant to Hashem. From the rabbis, who's the rabbi who has the ability to unite different opinions? Who's the rabbi who teaches ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha? Rabbi Akiva. So who's the rabbi who, even his rabbis say, okay, he's a student, but he has a special ability to bring both sides together to one table. The Seder night, that's Rabbi Akiva. So although Rabbi Akiva is a student of some of the rabbis there, they all come to him. We can, if that's an explanation, true explanation, so we can see here how important is the idea of union and uniting on Leil Seder. So B'ezrat Hashem will be sitting with family and should put a lot of effort in making sure everyone feels part, everyone has their own share, everyone feels comfortable together. And that's the idea of Rabbi Akiva. Another question which rises in the Haggadah and has quite a common answer, I've heard it from a few different rabbis, is we begin the Haggadah saying, talking about, go out and see what Lavan HaArami wanted to do to us. Paro wanted to kill only the men. Lavan wanted to kill everyone. Now open the Chumash. Where do you find that Lavan wanted to kill everyone? Doesn't say. Doesn't say that. And the common answer, I heard it a few times. I think once from Rav Eyal Vered. I think I heard it once from the Rav Tzvai Rashi, Rav Eyal Karim. Both were called Eyal. Interesting. That Lavan HaArami, he wanted Yaakov to stay with him. Don't go back to Israel. Don't build your nation. Be with us. Sit here. You have sheep here. You have family here. Why do you need to go back to the land of Israel? Why do you need to go back to your family? Be with us. He didn't want to kill him. He wanted to make Yaakov one of him, one of the family. Be an Aramite. Be like Lavan. That's called Bikesh Lavan La'akor et hakol. He wanted to uproot everything. And that's the idea of Leil Seder. Leil Seder, we try to not just gather the family and say we were saved from being slaves. We got our identity as nations. That's the idea of Leil Seder. So we start from Lavan HaArami. He was the first one who wanted to uproot us. But now we say, no, we have roots. We have strong roots. We're going to plant our roots strong in the land of Israel. There's a strong connection. I spoke about it in the past. Korban Pesach, according to Tosfot, can be brought only by people who live in Israel. So Pesach is the idea where we strengthen our connection to the land of Israel, strengthen our connection to the nation, to our Torah, the Mitzvot. Not like Lavan HaArami wanted to do this for us, and not like Paro wanted to do this for us. So B'ezrat Hashem, we all have Pesach, Kasher, Mesameach, a happy holiday, a lot of Nisim for the nation. We'll be able to go to Beit HaMikdash, living in Israel.
We will be